You ready? It's that time of year again. Welcome to your staple now on deadline day. It is the Argyle Life deadline day special, and we have got plenty coming your way over the course of the next couple hours. We have only got 58 minutes until the deadline slams shut. That window will smash, the glass will be everywhere as it is brought down on what has been some summer for Argyle fans. We've got a plethora of guests joining us over the next couple of hours to talk about the situations. Normally we go long into the night on this show. Not tonight. The powers that be are calling it quits at 7 o'clock. So Finn and Dan are with us, but before we get on to transfers, because there is so much to talk about tonight, we are briefly going to talk about the debacle that took place in South Wales at the weekend. It's a place that we really, really love going in recent times. The aggregate score is 9-0 in the last two seasons. 5-0 last year, 4-0 this season. Cardiff taking the lead after 43 minutes, a quick fire second followed just before half time. And then guess what? Just when you hoped Argyle would start the second half well and steady the ship, Cardiff went and got a third almost immediately. Argyle decided to play football for around 15 minutes before the wind came out of our sails around the 70-minute mark. And the less said about the last 20 minutes, the better. Finn, you were in South Wales, as is your norm. You were there. You saw it. I mean, it was pretty dismal for me, and I was 200 miles away. Why don't you tell us your experience of the Cardiff City Stadium? We don't, by the way, we don't have to have a 10-minute monologue like Sound Down.
Yeah,
so
no,
just say what you want. It's a family show, so no swear words, but just say what you want.
Okay. I'll save that for Andrew Parkinson then later. No, joking. But yeah, it's at this point, what can I say really? Cardiff's ground is always great to go to. Good facilities and stuff. And you get your pint served quickly. But the actual game, pretty good performance for 30 minutes. Pretty what you would want. Yes, they were on top of us, but it's clear that they've had a much better start to the season than us. And I'm sure we'll come on to Cleverley's comments in a bit after the game. But yeah, pretty good for 30 minutes, getting lots of blocks in, having the odd chance with Tolai in behind with long balls over the top. They didn't look particularly defensively sturdy themselves. But then as soon as we conceded, same old, completely unacceptable lack of spine in this squad at the moment. As soon as we go 1-0 down, it's almost like the game's over and we don't know how to recover. And yes, we'll come on to the investment soon, but the only person you can look at for that is the manager, because he's the one working with those players. It's all well and good him saying, oh, well, we need to address this quickly. Mate, we're 6 games in. You know what I mean? Like, get on with it then. It was the first time in years that I've really felt at the end of the game, where do we actually go from here? It's kind of hard to know just how far we're going to fall before we start to, start to progress again, basically. And it was like a couple of players were reluctant to come over and clap the fans, and when they did, they got booed. Just a complete, and it wasn't angry boos, it was a feel of resignation boos, and that's really concerning in the 1st of September. The 31st of August that game was, so not even in September yet. So just a dismal day, to be honest.
Dan, one of the rhetorics we've been fed in the build-up to Saturday's game was about how much of a turnover of a squad we've had, and obviously we're going to get into that as this program develops. How many players do you think started for Cardiff on Saturday that started the last time the two teams met on the 22nd of February?
Oh, that's a corker as a starter for 10. It's going to be unexpectedly low, I think, isn't it? Unless you're going the other way with it. But I don't know. I'll say I know they lost. They did lose quite a few in the summer and didn't sign many. Their squad's quite young. I'll go 5.
5. Ben, do you want to have a guess?
I think it's 3.
It is 3.
Wow.
Salek, Ruben Colwill, and Bagan, the left fullback, were the only 3 that started at Home Park in February and started again on Saturday. Now, it should be mentioned off the bench that day they had Fish, they had Perry and G came off the bench yesterday but started in the reverse fixture, so we can't really count that one. But when you're being fed a rhetoric that it's all change at Argyle, and, you know, Cardiff have also gone under their fair share of change, but it didn't look like it, did it?
No,
Certainly not. It certainly didn't. And I think that it's a line that is often trotted out a little bit lazily, perhaps, when a team does start badly. And sometimes it can be a legitimate reason, albeit a smallish one. Do I think that this squad properly gelled and at its maximum potential would have got massively more than 3 points from 6 games? Maybe it would have a few more on the board, but I don't think we'd be, it's the sole reason why we're in the relegation zone as opposed to being in the playoff places, for example. It's just a small contributor to the start that we've made. And there, as I say, there are far more kind of overriding reasons as to why we are in this mess. And a bit of squad gelling isn't really one of them.
No, absolutely. Before we go any further, do get any comments and questions in. As you can see, I'm getting through the comments as best I can. Do get some questions in. We are on for about the next 2 and a bit hours. I will be replaced in the halfway through the second half of tonight's show. I double booked myself rather conveniently. So Ben will take over for the final bit of the show, but do get questions into the panel. We got Graham Clark coming up in the second hour, among others. So do get questions in. We'll get to them as and when we can. We are 9 minutes and 25 seconds in, and already 1,500 people have tuned into our deadline day special. I need to try and get somebody in the group chat to get back to the January deadline day and remember how much we pulled in that night and see if we can break our records tonight. So do get sharing the stream around. Finn, one of my tweets caused a little bit of a stir on Saturday. I said that had the game gone in at 1-0 at half time, we probably would have said we've played okay and it would have been fair. To lose that second goal on the stroke of half time was rather demoralising. But when you look back on it, whilst we didn't create a huge amount, Cardiff weren't testing Ashby Hammond until that thunder strike, were they? And then it all just unravelled far too quickly.
Yeah, and actually, I think I commented to you about that. Not that I disagree with your tweet, but actually that is the problem. That is the problem, that we were well in that game, and then our heads just dropped as soon as we... And I had this feeling that we were going to concede. And looking at the game, like, before that point, there would have been no rightful reason for me to think, well, we're going to concede another goal in about 5 minutes because we looked okay. But just the pattern of this season is we can't respond. Okay, QPR, but the cup game really, like, and they're not doing great themselves. Like, we just haven't been able to respond to setbacks, and it's becoming a reoccurring theme. He's starting to not sound too much like Wayne Rooney in that he sort of is saying we need to get better. It's like, but how? Like at dealing with setbacks, it's like, but how are we doing it? You know, you can't just keep saying it and it keep happening. Otherwise, we are going to be in some trouble because we clearly fundamentally the system working at its best is meant to be an attacking system. So we are going to concede goals. So, we're going to have to respect, even if we start winning, we're probably going to go behind in some games. That's just the nature of football. And if we can't respond to going behind, we got no hope of it's kind of like being under John Sheridan, isn't it? If you go 1-0 down, you lost the game.
Aaron's watching backstage. He'll probably get very excited at the thought of Argyle under John Sheridan once again. But Andy Hobbs sort of backs up the point I was making. Cardiff's XG at halftime was 0.2. It's taken an absolute wonder strike to beat Luca Ashby-Hammond, and a lot, there's arguments as to whether or not there was a handball in there. I think you just get on with it. There's arguments about whether Mumba realised he'd won a tackle and stopped playing after winning the tackle, but we done plenty before that to prevent the goal. And then Brendan Wirradu, obviously, unfortunately for him, the poor boy can't catch a break at the moment, involved in 2 whooping deflections that have gone past Ashby-Hammond. Dan, just very quickly, would you be able to pick anybody out from Saturday's performance as a, not necessarily a highlight, that's probably the wrong word when you get beat 4-0, but as somebody to take out of the game? Was there anybody in particular in your eyes?
Yeah, blimey, you really are kind of clutching at straws, aren't you, to try and find some positives in terms of individual performances. But as Finn said, there were points in the game, I think, for the first half an hour, as he said. And then I thought after half time, we actually really came out and looked like we had a bit of purpose about a second half. Then they hit us with that sucker punch third goal, also deflected. And I think it's both. It's unlucky, but it is. You make your own luck. You put the ball, you get in those positions often enough, and you will get that rub of the green sometimes, which we're not doing. So I don't think it's completely down to luck at all. Individual players wise, well, in those good periods in the game, our transition was a bit better. We're obviously still trying to mainly play it out from the back and not kind of have to pump it long too often. Which has its issues, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But at times our transition was better, and playing through the thirds and getting the ball into dangerous areas, or at least the kind of earlier, their kind of third of the pitch, which is the straws we got to clutch at the minute. So I guess Boateng was okay in that regard. He's been one of our better players this season so far, which is saying more about the others, unfortunately. But that's about as good as I can do, I think, to be honest. I don't think Mitchell did too much wrong in defence. But we really are kind of clutching at straws. Even Ashby-Hammond, who's had a decent couple of games, definitely should have done better for the fourth goal. Blameless for the first 3. I don't think, the first one's a very good strike. The next 2 are deflected. No chance at all.
Dan, sorry, the problem is with the fourth goal, like it's they just let him keep running. No one actually stops the guy that's obviously
for sure. Yeah,
on his right foot.
Yeah,
so poor. It's just.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that, and there's also arguments for the first goal as well, and for the second. Could we have closed down better? Ibrahim puts in a really half-assed challenge for the second. I think it was Watts needed to close down a bit better for the first. But yeah, the fourth is a goalkeeping error beyond much else. We really are just kind of trying to grasp at anything positive to take out of the game, and it's one of those frustrating ones that I've said this a lot in the build-up to this season and since it started. I can take losing games. Losing games happens, even in our magical 100-point plus seasons. I think we lost 7 games in 2022-23 and similar in 01-02 under Sturrock. It happens. But what I can't accept is losing 5 games out of 6 and looking like, in most of them, being comfortably outclassed. Cardiff are in a kind of similar boat to us. We might well go there and lose. We might have a really strong squad. We might still have lost there. But to get humiliated by them like we did, it's just not on. It's not good enough. Which we'll come on to in the next the next hour and 45 minutes, I'm sure, as to the reasons why. But bottom line is, our position in the league, our performances so far, and the reasons behind them simply ain't good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to change quickly. That's all I'm going to dedicate to Cardiff, to be honest, because 3,000 people went to the Cardiff City Stadium. They gave it their absolute all in the stands. And for what's the statistic? Is it the 44th time out of the last 49 away games we came home without a win? Just 5 wins from the last 49 away games, I think I saw the stat was after Saturday's game. That is clearly not good enough and clearly runs a lot deeper in the club than just this current set of management. However, they do have the chance to get back on the horse tomorrow night in the first game of the Virtue Trophy. Yes, delighted, over the moon. We're not going to do a podcast. You can join us on either Tuesday night or Wednesday evening. We haven't decided which yet. Aaron is going to do one of our, BBC 606 phone-in style things over on X. He very kindly volunteered earlier on today, which was absolutely spiffing of him. And if you do watch the game, if you are going to Home Park tomorrow night and you want to get involved, do head along to X when Aaron puts the tweet out that he will be doing it. Bartley just confirming they're 5-49. That is honking. That is the word I would use to describe that. So moving swiftly on, very quickly before we come to the final 40 minutes of the transfer window, and I expect something's going to happen very soon. We are back in league action next week because all our internationals are currently out injured, so we can't cancel the game against Stockport. Stockport come into town, Finn. Nice, easy game. They're not very good, are they? This should be a comfortable win, shouldn't it? This is where our season starts. Oh, wait, no, actually, Stockport are pretty good.
Yeah, it's a real problem. Exactly the kind of game you probably don't want coming up after the way we started. But yes, the next 2 games are huge for, well, they're certainly in my mind huge for Tom Cleverley, because we'll get on to how well he's been backed in the last the transfer window, but the formation clearly isn't working. So far, we played 4-2-3-1 every game, and we look just as vulnerable on the counter when we lose the ball as we do unlikely to score and create goals at the minute. The goal against Blackpool was frankly a bit of Boateng brilliance. So we don't look fluid anywhere at the moment. And if he doesn't change the formation to try and combat the Luton and Stockport are going to feel like they can go at us, particularly at the moment, I do struggle to not believe that some fingers will start to be pointed at that point. However, more fingers need to be pointed at the board, but that's a separate point. I just think, it could get quite ugly, to be honest, on Saturday. If we go 1-0 down, particularly early, the atmosphere is going to be terrible.
From what I know, Stockport are without 2 players at the weekend. I was keeping my fingers crossed that Nathan Lowe may have received a call up to one of the England young teams and therefore would have made it 3 and they could have called the game off. Because quite frankly, Dan, Rob McNichol on Argyle TV spun the usual line that after a heavy defeat like that, the best thing is another game straight away. And obviously they've got that Tuesday, and the league is really what's important. I kind of get the impression with this group they could do with a week off. I know that sounds strange, but there's already some battered bodies out there. We keep hearing about how there's these muscle injuries that are being picked up in training, in games, and cramps and all sorts. And it's almost like they just need to get away for 3-4 days, forget about football again, and come back and start all over after the internationals.
Yeah, a bit of time to regroup, I think, as you say, would be the best way to go. The number of injuries we've had from the start of kind of pre-season up to now, and the number of different players that have got injured, and the number of injuries that haven't been kind of contact in-game injuries, if you like, is to the point where, and I don't want to kind of be a conspiracy theorist or point fingers, but it's beyond coincidence, isn't it? How have we got so many injuries in one go?
It's ridiculous if this was a manager, we talk about the fixtures. If this is the manager, we want them out. Like if the manager was judged on how many injuries we got, we'd want him out already. So we should be, questioning the fixtures.
This wasn't a problem, Dan, under Elliot Turner. We never seemed to pick up this amount of muscle-related injuries when Elliot Turner was in charge of strength and conditioning.
Yeah, and that might well be a factor. It might be a coincidence, but like you say, it seems more and more with every new injury that comes in, especially muscle injuries, that it isn't a coincidence. And you do wonder whether there were there can be some factors. My favourite manager to reference, as you will all know, is Mr. Rooney. And he put out an interview at the start of December 2024, soon before he was sacked with us, saying we've actually stepped up the intensity of our training. And within, I think, a week and a half of him putting that news article out, we had 3 more injuries, two of which were muscles. And it's just like, well, are we overtraining? Are we undertraining? Might be a possibility. Certainly seems like some organisational training wouldn't go amiss. And you can't help but when we are in such an awful position in the league table and on the pitch, you can't help but kind of scrutinise all these tiny little areas. And a lot of them might be nothing at all. It might be just something that you look into and it turns out to be nothing. But it's really hampering us. Look at our bench over the last few games. I mean, we're kind of having to turn to players like, with the greatest respect to them, Joe Hatch, who has got potential, but right now isn't what we need in our first team. Tegan Finn to an extent is really, really promising, but to similar extent. Bim Peppel, I haven't seen enough from him so far to be any more than a kind of bit part player. Owen Aseni, I know, scored a couple in the cup. I don't see enough from him either to be starting. And as a result of that, we are really, really thin on the ground. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think 2 weeks to just kind of regroup rather than, thick and fast. Yes, it's only the pizza leasing.com Virtu trophy, whatever it's called, that we've got in midweek, but it's still another game which some first team players are going to have to play in due to their fantastically made up rules. And then it's Stockport, and then we're into Luton the next week. So the games come thick and fast. And you can put the positive spin on it, as Rob said, a great chance to kind of right wrongs and get points on the board, etc. But when you're in the precarious position that we are, those games can come thick and fast, and the losses can come thick and fast, and you can just put yourself in a worse and worse and worse position and put ourselves in a lot of trouble. I crunched some numbers earlier today, and yes, it's only 6 games, people can say, but when you look at the kind of typical points needed to just get in the playoffs, over previous seasons in League One, you look at about 78 points. Now, to get to 78 points, obviously, we still need 75 from our remaining 40. You're getting up towards 2 points per game already that we just need, and that's just to have a good chance of making the playoffs, for goodness sake. It's a really difficult position for us right now, and mostly self-inflicted, and that's the big frustration.
It's not going to get any easier, as you say. I think there's 1 or 2 more bumps in the road before things flatten out. Personally, I can't wait till we get the other side of the Luton game and the fixtures become a little bit more kind. We all knew on paper this was going to be a tough start to the season. I don't think any of us expected it to be as tough as it has proven. Just very quickly, lads, score predictions for the weekend. I'm not going to get score predictions for the Virtu Trophy because, frankly, it's not worth the time of day. Dan and Finn, score predictions for Stockport?
Do you want to go down?
Oh, blimey. Well, it kind of depends on how the next 34 minutes goes, I suppose. But with what we've currently got now, I can't see it changing, unfortunately. I think we'll get edge 2-1.
And I'll go 2-0 Stockport.
2-0 Stockport. I hope it's not what Bartley says. Crikey, I don't want that to be my afternoon. But there we go. That is Cardiff wrapped up. That is Stockport spoken about. And Dan has made Andy drop his beer by talking about the playoffs.
Well, can I just say on that front then, I totally agree with you, Andy. Playoffs right now with the squad that we've got, the position that we're in is just nonsensical. And I've said this to the guys. I would take 20th right now this season. The way this season started, the way the squad's shaping up, that's where I think we are. However, my pre-season thoughts, given that we really, really shouldn't have been relegated, it was only due to bad decisions at boardroom level that we were. Playoffs was the minimum, was my absolute minimum expectation. I was being pretty bullish. I wanted us straight back out of this league, and we're not going to do it, basically, and that's why I mean the absolute to get to the absolute minimum of getting in the playoffs or having a chance, we've got almost title winning form already.
Yeah, but you say that, Dan, but we've got a top 6 playing budget, so
we'll
come on to that. We'll come on to that. Not just yet. Finn, very quickly.
I didn't ever think we were going to get promoted this season, because I think League One's a very difficult league. But I did think we'd finish 4th, and I did say, well, especially when Muslic was here, and even then I didn't really readjust my prediction much for cleverly. And I did say if we didn't finish in the playoffs, that would be a massive disappointment. So what's this?
Wow. It's a dumpster fire at the moment, is what it is. Let's get on with it then. We have just got 32 minutes left until that window slams shut. This is totally wrong, by the way. The authorities need to look at this. A transfer window closing at 7 p.m. just is not on. It's pathetic. It's ruined my feng shui for the evening. Let's get into it then, because it has been one hell of a summer for Argyle fans. We went in as we were preparing for life in League One with a different head coach to the one we've got. We then managed to sign 5 players before we appointed a head coach. And then things took a little bit of time again before we managed to get back on the wagon. In the meantime, a load of first-team players departed the football club for pastures new. And we are left with the squad that we have got. We have today added Law McCabe on loan from Middlesbrough. He is our experienced central midfielder to come into the side and be our general in the engine room of the team. On that, I use that as a flippant remark. That's very tongue-in-cheek, Dan. Here is a player who has considerable talent, obviously, behind him with going through the England pathway. He's obviously a player highly regarded. As Argyle fans, we absolutely want him to be the next best thing since garlic bread, don't we? We want him to come in. We want him to hit the ground running. And we want him to be the missing piece of the jigsaw. And we wish him nothing but the best, surely.
Best thinking since garlic bread, like that as an alternative, And our transfer business certainly does stink this season. Anyway, I saw someone online put in the response to the McCabe signing, right player, wrong time. And that, I think, sums it up very well, because he is, by all accounts, very, very talented. Middlesbrough fans seem to be very, there seems to be a lot of kind of complimentary kind of things, being said about him, which is very encouraging. Seems like he is a very kind of creative midfielder, good on the ball, will bring some spark to this team. However, and don't get me wrong, we do need some creative spark. We need a hell of a lot of things. We need pretty much everything in this team right now. But when you look at the 5 centre midfielders we've got at the club right now, I believe they all range between the age of 19 and 23. Where's the experience in there? I'm not calling for, I'm not saying we need to have a team full of, 30-somethings that have all been there and done that, because you can mix youth and experience. You have the experienced heads to guide you through games and be an important kind of leader in important areas of the pitch. But, just having everyone in there with no experience, it really is a concern. And
there's no value, Dan. There's no value in signing proven, experienced players at this level.
Well, apparently not. And we were also told earlier in the window about, we didn't want to sign players on loan. Well, that seems to have been kind of put out the window now, as we couldn't sign anyone permanently other than Talai. And we've now filled 2 of our 5 loan slots. And to be honest, I think we need to fill most of the others in the next 29 minutes. Yeah, it's a midfield that really lacks experience. And as Finn was saying, in those difficult moments in games, when you go behind, when you go ahead and you need to kind of keep your shape and be resolute, that's going to be really difficult for an inexperienced midfield to manage.
You
To the
know who?
point where I'm just thinking, sorry, Finn, I'm just thinking, does it get to the stage where, let's be honest, do we need to look at just sticking someone like a Joe Edwards? Maybe his legs are going. Wouldn't blame him. He's 35, but do we just stick him in front of the back four and just say, organise us? Don't need you to do much on the ball. Don't need you to do much running. Just sit there and organise the beep out of this team, because that's what it needs right now. Probably more than anything else. We need a hell of a lot, like I say, but we really need an experienced head to organise us. Will McCabe bring that? No, because he's only played 3 senior games. Hopefully, at least he can bring some more flair and creativity and quality to this starting 11.
Finn, very quickly before you say your piece on the signing of Law McCabe, Mr. Elo 101 has said it perfectly on YouTube. Not about Tom Cleverley being our experienced midfielder. If we hadn't heard for the last week that we were in need of an experienced midfielder to come in and marshal the troops, would we not be looking at this signing a little bit differently? We'd be looking at it through a different prism. But because for the last week we've been fed the rhetoric that we want experience, the messages are mixed here, aren't they? And they have been for a couple of weeks now.
From my reckoning, this is about the 9th or 10th different mixed message of the window, in terms of, from basically, without saying it, readjusting our expectations for this season, to the strikers that we're going to bring in, exciting the city, and then, no disrespect to Tolai, getting a striker that was available on a release clause all window, to David Fox saying that we need, we're only going to get loans in if they're experienced, and then getting in, 2 inexperienced loans. I'm trying not to swear, blooming ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And there's no disrespect to Law McCabe, he might be brilliant, but again, summing up that a comment that Dan said he saw earlier, right player, wrong time. Just, he might do by coincidence or by chance, in which case, great, but his profile of player does nothing. It's just an extra body at the moment. What we need is experience. We need someone who's able to pick up, and yes, they might be harder to look for, but I don't have any sympathy with that. You've had all window. What is the planning? Where is the planning, and who's responsible for what? No one seems to know that at the moment. Who's actually responsible for recruiting the players? Is it Stuart Webber? Is it David Fox? Is it, how much has Tom Cleverley got to say in it? How much has Tom Randall got to say in it? We're meant to be a well-run club, and we've got 25 minutes left of the window, and we're looking at signing 1 player, maybe 2 if we get Owen Dale in, as rumoured. Owen Dale was a replacement for Xavier Amici. It's not even an extra body. It's just a body that we need now because another player is injured. It's ridiculous. And sorry for going on that, but
well, in all fairness, Finn, I think the next hour and a half of this program are probably going to be people ranting, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about that. I haven't even got myself wound up just yet, and I've been wanting to smash my head into a brick wall all day. But Harry McSherry says it himself here on YouTube. It was only 48 hours ago that Tom Cleverley was saying we needed that experienced head in midfield, but it doesn't look like we're going to get it. So that boat has sailed. What we should end on this little section of tonight's programme is welcome to Law McCabe. Welcome to Plymouth Argyle. The fans will be right behind him, as they will be right behind the team on Saturday. And look, all you can do, I mean, he's not going to be there Saturday because coincidentally he's away on international duty now. But all that he can do is come in and he can showcase exactly what potential and what ability he's got. And fingers crossed, as I say, that he can come in, and he may well be the missing piece to the jigsaw. I hope and I pray that he is, because the trust is waning on between the fan base and the football club, as I mentioned the other week. 23 minutes to go until the window slams shut. I am flicking. You might see my screen light up my face a little bit every now and again. I am flicking between the Twitter feed and the Sky Sports blog and all sorts to see and hope if we are being linked with anybody else. At the moment, that is not proving to be the case. Finn just exits stage right a little bit, so Finn will be back with us. So you stuck with me and Dan just for a second. Dan, 23 minutes to go, then let's get into it. It looks like at most it will be one more. By my count earlier, including players who've left on loan, it's 16 out, currently 13 in. Where are we at here? Because it's 13, going to be 14 in. And if I saw somebody had done a list of player for player down the departures and the arrivals. I mean, the obvious one that was glaring to me, and we've just talked about it there, is we haven't replaced Jordan Houghton, who I'd probably give my spleen for at the moment to go into that midfield. What's your school grade? What's your school report on the summer transfer window?
With the caveat that I know some people, and fair play to them for their positivity, are trying to say,
I've got
just add a little.
I've got a comment from Comrade Allsop that I'm going to read out in a minute. So there's a bit of positivity that we'll bring to the.
It might well be, yeah. It might well be, and genuinely, you know, if we add an experienced head here and a bit of quality there, this team will click, and then bang, we'll be away. I'm really, really struggling to see it. I know people are saying about some starts that we made in, the playoff season under Warnock when we lost our first 4. Sturrock's title winning season, we only got 1 point from our first 3 games. Derek Adams' season, we lost our first 2. But for every one of those examples, there'll be 50 others where teams just start rubbish because they're rubbish, quite frankly. Player for player, it doesn't look good. As you'd expect to an extent, we had some championship quality players were inevitably going to get better offers and we were going to have to let them go. But in terms of what we've replaced them with, school report, blimey. But what is it? It's numbered. I'm showing my age. It's numbered grades these days, isn't it? So what does it go 9 down to 1?
Let's show our age. Let's go back to letters because I don't understand the point scoring. So let's go with letters instead.
Yeah, I was getting that from sons of friends, and it's like, I got a 4 in GCSE. Well, I don't know, what does that mean? Is that good? Do I say congratulations or commiserations? Anyway, E, F, how far down does it go? I think that's kind of why we got to go, because with the caveat that some players might show more than they are now with a bit more experience alongside them, or just more quality in the team, or a better goalkeeper or whatever, but you've got to judge it on what it is right now. And not only 3 points from 6 games, but the performances in those games. Yes, Barnsley, we were a little bit unlucky. Yes, Lincoln, we could have had a penalty. Yes, Leyton Orient was a bit of a nothing game. Blimey, we're clutching at straws here. I think pretty much we deserve to be on 3 points from 6 games. And that with where we should be in this division, like I said at the top, playoffs minimum, top 6 budget and all that, it's just as low a mark as I can possibly give. We've kind of, as you say, with it coming up to 14 in, 16 out, it's not as if we're desperately short of kind of bodies. It's not as if we're kind of not filling the bench or whatever, despite all these injuries, but it's just the quality, complete lack of strength in depth is the real issue. I think we need 3 more, to be honest. I know the Amici injury is, another one to add to the list, and that wouldn't have been necessarily kind of budgeted for before his injury. but it is what it is. And we definitely needed a winger before that. I think if we do sign Dale, he's right-footed. So if we continue to play this kind of inside forwards thing on their opposite side, he's, to me, looks like someone that will compete with Mumba for left wing. And then we need someone left-footed to play on the right wing. Obviously, we've got Tegan Finn, but we need another in there for me, for sure. So, yeah, Dale, a right winger, and then one that I think we absolutely need is another striker. It's very telling, by the way, that people are kind of saying, I've seen in the comments about we need a left back, another person saying we need another keeper, Ashby Hammond ain't good enough, more experience in midfield, just everywhere. And that really does kind of show how short we are on quality for me. But striker is basically top of the priority list. I haven't seen enough from Peppel to be any more than a bit part player, like I said. Aseni has scored a couple of goals, but again, especially as we're only playing one up front, sometimes he's isolated. He's got to hold the ball up, got to be strong against these big, ugly League One centre halves. I haven't seen anywhere near enough from Peppel or Aseni yet. I know they're still young, but and that to me says if Tolai gets injured, then what? Do we go back to Watts up front? Do we just hope that Peppel and Aseni can do enough? Do we change formation? But for me, we've got to get another striker in so that we can rotate him and Tolai, or he can challenge Tolai, because we're still short in that area for me, and that's going to be a big part of our season.
There is a school of thought to say that Caleb Watts' best performance has been as a striker against Barnsley, and we've not played him back there since. So perhaps if we were to shift to a 2, maybe even a 3 up front system, not trying to push anyone at all towards a 3-5-2, 3-4-2-1, or a 3-4-3, Mr. Cleverley, if you're watching, then take an idea from that. Finn, I asked Dan for his shout. We're nearly at 3,000 people watching as we approach the window smashing itself to smithereens. What's your school report? What's the grade you're giving the summer transfer window?
Yeah, it just has to be you, doesn't it? I mean, it wouldn't be so bad if we hadn't been told to have big expectations for this season in terms of the budget. We probably spent more than the majority of League One teams this season, granted. But the recruitment has so far proved to be so poor. And like Dan was saying, there are so many areas that you could still make a case for needing to strengthen. We haven't actually. We have. I was trying to work this out the other day. Have we got a better squad than when we got relegated from League One last time? I mean, seriously, honestly, we had.
That's a very, very fair question.
We've got better fullbacks, because there's no way Tafari Moore or Ashley Smith-Brown get in this team.
Okay, but we ain't got Kerry or Lamiras, have we?
Okay, yeah, granted. But we had Freddie Ladapo.
Isn't Freddie Ladapo now available again? Haven't Huddersfield made him available for transfer or something? Could we not, one last dance, Freddie?
That would push me over the edge.
Warnock-esque, one last dance.
But okay, granted, he's fallen off a cliff a bit, his form and stuff. But Freddie Ladapo scored quite a lot of goals. I'm not saying I have him back. I'm just saying about the overall quality of the players, right? Well, Tolai probably, I reckon he's going to do all right for us. If we play him, I think we need to go to up front, but that's a separate conversation. Ruben Ramirez is one of the best players I've ever seen play for Plymouth Argyle in terms of technical ability. Graham Carey, same. Even then, right? We had the current director of football, whatever his job is. Has he been doing a job this window? I don't even know. But so his legs had gone, but he was a good player, could pass the ball. Jamie Ness, injured, yes. But in terms of the quality, even the players that are getting injured, I've not seen a lot from Xavier Michi yet. And he's meant to be one of the marquee players that we brought in. So I really am struggling to see where Like there is quality in this team, but it is a weaker squad. Like you can't deny that. We weren't.
It's a very
Sorry,
go on, Finn. Finish your point.
Like even like it's August and we're having Tegan Finn. Yes, he's probably one of the best young players we've produced in years, but it's August and we're having to bring on Asaka, Hatch, and Finn off the bench when one of the only youth players we brought off the bench in the 18-19 season was Luke Jeffcott.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a post earlier on Passotti, which I replied to, and I can't remember who it was put it up, was saying about it was on the Law McCabe thread, and he welcomed McCabe to the club and the city and wished him all the best. But he pointed out that, when you think about the midfield that we had last time we were in League One, when supposedly we've got a bigger budget this time around, the midfields are incomparable. I'd give anything for that midfield that we had 3 years ago. And it sort of goes back to my point, Dan, doesn't it? It rounds off the point I made the other week that since we've been out of League One, the environment that we're now in has changed so much off the back of one season with Birmingham and Wrexham coming in, spending the money they have. Luton, all of a sudden, in the last sort of 72 hours, have really started to flex their financial muscles in this league. You've got Huddersfield have done the same this year. Bolton have thrown a bit of cash at it as well. Have we necessarily adapted to it, or have we just assumed that League One and the transfer market is exactly the same as it was 3 years ago, and it's only now we're realising that it isn't?
Well, Simon Hallett said that our playing budget was considerably more this time than it was 3 years ago, and I'm sure that's true. Other teams, as you say, have kind of flexed their financial muscles more. So whether we had or have as big a budget as we thought we did comparative to the rest of the league, possibly not. But then don't go spouting out top six budget if you're going to do that. Sadly, from the board's point of view, the only other, I can't kind of put it in any other way at this point, it is either arrogance or stupidity that has got us in that position, because it can't be anything else. Were we so arrogant as to think that, yeah, we're going to kind of do things differently like we did before, but actually kind of, yeah, let's box clever and not get the kind of sensible League One signings and just, get some outside the box players, but fill our squad with them rather than supplementing them in with more experienced heads, maybe? Or were we just stupid enough to just not get those quality signings done that we tried to get done? And I really don't know. As has been said throughout the pod tonight and over the last few weeks, such random communication that's been come out from various parts of the club, from the boardroom and from the management team, just makes you second guess every single thing that comes out. I saw Chris Errington put something out earlier about how we were linked with a couple of players, but he said a source at the club said we weren't interested in signing them. Well, I'm starting to think now, you second guess it. Did they use the word sign as in to make kind of wiggle out of, we tried to get them on loan, but actually we didn't? Or is it just, we missed out on them, so we'll just lie and say that we didn't try and sign them? And I really don't know. It's just a complete loss of trust in both what they say. I mean, I'm not really looking forward to this fans forum next week, because I think they'll have just had plenty of time to prepare some nice kind of, spin doctor answers over the accounts and where the money is going. I don't know if it's going to reveal anything too much, to be honest. The proof's in the pudding, mate, isn't it? We're in a terrible position. We've signed terribly. We've got 9 minutes to go to sign 3 players. It's just a mess. It's just a complete mess. And like I say, for all the good stuff, and credit where credit's due, and I was singing his praises as high as anyone back in 2023. He did a fantastic job to get us up to that stage, and we were a fantastic run club. And that's what's made this last 18 months even more baffling, because in the last 18 months, the management of this football club as a whole has been shambolic, absolutely shambolic. And as a diehard fan of, I don't want to, flex my muscles or whatever, but, it's been going since 2003, and love this club to bits, and it's just rubbish. As Sam said a couple of times, I don't like sitting here moaning and ranting all the time. I'd love to be at least like debating the tiny little things like, oh, maybe we should have this person on a set piece or this little formation tweak or something like that. And yet we're talking about massive structural problems within the football club and a team that's in a relegation battle when it should be at the other end of the table. It's just hurts. And I hope that they're hurting as much as we are as fans. Are they? Who knows? I'm sure they say they will, but maybe they won't. It's just, pretty rubbish to, pretty difficult to kind of stay positive right now.
Yeah, I mean, I made the point there the other day that we don't like bringing the negative podcasts. Yes, people like to interact with us when things aren't going well, because obviously everybody wants to vent and they want to get things off our chest. But I can promise you, we much more enjoyed the League One title win with the podcasts and the first season in the Championship than what we have done the last 14, 15 months. And it is becoming incredibly tiresome. I said this the other day to people that it is becoming so draining now to be watching this team, because it feels like for the last 12 months all we've done is lose. All we've done is get beat, and all we've done is embarrass ourselves, particularly away from home. We talk about the stat that's 5 in 49 of wins in the last, couple of seasons. So it's pretty bleak. Finn, we've got 7 minutes to go. Chris Errington still believes that Owen Dale either has signed or will sign before the 7 p.m. deadline. Of course, he may well have signed at 2 o'clock this afternoon, but Argyle may well have scheduled the announcement for 7 p.m. tonight just for a bit of theatre. Where do you think we've left ourselves weakest in the squad?
There's many places you could argue, but I would probably say, left back, one of them. We've got one left back coming back from injury, and Matty Sornola, who doesn't really look that comfortable. Centre midfield again, there's no experience there. And striker as well, because of the Tolai, who is there? I'd just like to say, very quickly on this window, that I feel like there needs to be, in the club, there needs to be an inquest as to what's gone wrong this window. There's many people that would have been culpable for many different things, and you can't have a window this bad and there not be an effort to try and make it better next time. I think David Fox maybe being thrown in a little bit at the deep end. With the being the loans manager. Well, who's the person that made that appointment? Andrew Parkinson, right? This guy has overseen, was reported to be very influential in the appointment of Rooney. Yes, the club got Muslic right, but then that wasn't handled particularly well by either party. He was there when Foster was there. He's overseen lots of success at this club. But if Juicenic went last season, from my reckoning, there has to be someone has to go after this. What Dan called, rightly so, a shambles. And so he's the logical next one, right? People can say Hallett out, but Hallett is the owner of the club. So unless he sells to somebody, then he's not going anyway. But there is somebody that's overseen the last 18 months and actually, by all accounts, is still pretty influential in transfers. And for my reckoning, he doesn't need to be here anymore. He needs to
go. Final thoughts then, gents, because you've probably got around 90 seconds each I know that's a good challenge before the window begins to draw to a close. Dan, you first, 90 seconds. Get as much off your chest about the summer transfer window as you wish.
Blimey, I need to recharge the batteries after the last rant, I think, and think of something else to say, but it's more of the same. there have been various sliding doors moments for this club over the last couple of years. I know Sam goes to the "we didn't sign Finn Azaz" one, which seems quite specific to me, but I think more broadly speaking, and I don't know, like I say, arrogance or stupidity, but I go back to that point and say it's got to be one or the other. And certainly, as I've said before, but we'll say it again, the moment that people make mistakes in football, mistakes happen. It happens to everyone. No one's perfect. And that's what Ian Foster was. Simon made a mistake. And as long as we learned from it, we would have been fine. I think we could easily have stayed up in the Championship last season by doing what we were doing, being clever, being smart, being the sensible club that doesn't just chuck money at a problem or go for the big name. And in June 2024, we did exactly that and appointed Mr. Rooney. It relegated us. And now look where we are, and all the spin that's come out of, we're going to go for promotion, top 6 budget, promotion push, get your season ticket now, get your shirt now. It's just all spin and lies and rubbish because, like I said, playoffs, you must be joking. Take 20th right now and run. Don't think I'm getting my 3 players, am I? Maybe we'll get 1. It's not good.
Finn, Dan's left you about 50 seconds.
Sorry, Finn.
On for 50 seconds.
Yeah, it's just I'm fed up with it. We're all fed up with it, really. What we need to see now is, I know we've been the manager, you could argue, is being under supported this window, but I just want to see some results purely to make people feel good again, but also because we've had 18 months of rubbish, and people could say go and support Liverpool if you wanted to, but Plymouth Argyle isn't just a club for today, it's a club for life, isn't it? So do better, please.
Do better is a very good thing. And with just 70 seconds to go, a transfer window that started with a managerial change all those weeks ago began with a signing back on the 4th of June. Bradley Ibrahim was the first one into Home Park. All seemed positive. Argyle were being proactive. Then followed 3 very swift departures. Daniel Grimshaw, Ryan Hardy and Adam Randall all left the football club. Argyle responded with enough signing of Owen Asani. In the meantime, 3 transfers were announced of Jack McKenzie, Jamie Patterson, Xavier Amici and Caleb Watts from then up the road. Mustafa Bundu, Jordan Houghton, Ben Wayne, Saxon Early, Will Jenkins-Davis all departed the football club. Bim Peppel came in along with Brendan Wiradu, Eamon Benarous, Luca Ashby-Hammond. Out went Maxi Talavirov, Rami El Haj, Victor Poulsen. Out on loan went Ogbeta, Beidou, Wright and Matthews. In came Mitchell and McCabe, rounded off by Ross and Talai. Today was rounded off by Law McCabe. But now the window is shut. 7 p.m. is upon us. The transfer window has closed. And as of yet, there is still no announcement of the signing of Dale Taylor.
I wish it was
Dale Taylor. He's definitely not signing. I made that mistake earlier. Owen Dale still, it's been a long day. Owen Dale still hasn't joined.
It can.
Argyle. It can. It absolutely can. There we go. Gents, thank you for the first hour. You've been excellent value. Plenty of rants have been had. I suspect over the next few weeks, more rants may well emerge. But we will let you head off and enjoy your Monday evenings. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Finn and Dan are out. In come Graham Clark, Adam Price, and Ben to take us through the next hour. And the hour starts, as I just refresh my screen in front of me, the hour starts still without news of the signing of Owen Dale, not anybody else, Owen Dale. 3,500 people are watching you here on the Deadline Day stream. You're very welcome. Do get your comments and questions in. I have starred a few. If I can't get to them before 7:30, Ben will try and rattle through some of them as the rest of it goes on. Darren blames the yellow tie. That's a little bit harsh, Darren. This was freshly ironed this morning. I just want to get to John Alsop's comment before we come to you guys. John's not with us this evening, but he did send in his thoughts for those of you who are listening in. Not on tonight, but his 2 cents are: he gets starred as a happy clapper, but his attitude has always been more wait and see. Still very early in the league, but now the window is over and it has clearly not been good enough. The board owe us an explanation. Here we are then, Graham. The window has closed. 1 in today. That one being Law McCabe, who has come in as our midfielder, not quite what Tom cleverly declared he wanted 48 hours ago. I'll ask you with the question I sort of ended with Dan and Finn, really. What's your school report of the summer transfer window?
Well, in our 101 season, we outperformed our budget, and without question, we've underperformed our budget this time round. And for those who say we haven't got a top 6 budget, I'll just say this: under the rules, the salary cap management protocol, teams are limited to 60% of their turnover. We're one of the top turnover teams in the division, and we clearly have the potential, I say the potential, to have a top 6 budget. My question is, have we spent it all? If we have, God forbid, because it's a bit weird that here we are, we've got 14 players in. We've equalled the top record signing for a League One club, I think. Alfie May was 1.2 million and Tolai was 1.2 million. So that should be a cause for celebration. We spent 2.2 million pound on transfers, which is more than we spent in the 101 season, clearly. And yet we all feel somehow shortchanged. And my worry, and it's a real worry, I've said it for many, many weeks, physicality and height are what League One is all about. And to my horror, we sign a 5'5" and a 5'9" player today with not physicality or height. Every team we played, even Blackpool, who we beat, were physically stronger and bigger than we were. It's a fundamental error in the recruitment not to address it. I get, to a degree, the willingness to buy some development players, and we started off doing that. Then we went unaccountably 5 weeks without signing a player. And I look at teams like Stevenage, who've got half the playing budget that we have, or less, Exeter City. And they've got League One standard players. And I'm struggling to see that we have a complete team of League One standard players at the moment.
Graham,
Just let me finish. It seems, and this, whether it's raised at the fans forum, I don't know. The board strategy was development players. I think everybody we've signed so far is under 25, I think.
Except for Jamie Patterson.
I was just going to come on to him. Right. But Jamie Patterson is exactly the sort of player with the experience and nous that we should be signing. And we haven't got anybody. When you look at our midfield, it's crying out for the midfield, a Jordan Houghton, if you like, who can do the professional foul, can make the tackle, can organise. And we are vacant in the middle of the field. We're going to get done time after time with the games coming up unless we address the physicality. And I am really worried. And I don't know if you saw Tom Cleverley's interview. I mean, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's probably guilty of saying too much at times. But I just sense he sees his role as a head coach. Have we adopted the European model of the recruitment team gives us the players and the head coach develops them? I might be wrong, but there just seemed to be a schism between the recruitment team. He spent an hour with them. I mean, if it was, I'll go back to the Shuey and Jimmy Dickinson days. They were all over it. And with Neil Dewsnip, we're a million miles away from that recruitment system. We seemed a million miles away. And it just stems back. I think we failed to recruit a sporting director. We went when the Dewsnip left, head of football was out. Let's get a sporting director in, and we didn't appoint one. I don't know why. There was interviews and they weren't appointed, whether they went up to scratch. So we had a consultant in, Stuart Webber, well-known sporting director at Norwich, I believe, and somewhere else. And he was brought on board as a consultant, as part of a company, to advise the board on football matters. You might remember at the fans forum back in January, I think it was, there was criticism that the board didn't have football knowledge. Well, they tried to address it, and that's what we ended up with. He recruited seemingly David Fox, and David is Argyle through and through, lovely guy. But was it naive to expect him to manage this on his own? Then we've got Tom Randall. I don't even know what he looks like. At least with Jimmy, you knew who he was, you know what he was doing. But Tom Randall seems to be somebody in the background, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just explaining the recruitment. The way we've managed it this window has got to be one of the worst I can recall. Despite having signed 14 players, record signing, and spent 2.1 million, it just doesn't add up.
Just very quickly, you mentioned about how we might have gone to European model. I'm pretty sure Simon Hallett said that in the interview. I think it might have been with Pilgrim's podcast or something, that they were going to a more European-based model. So perhaps that explains it. Just reiterate to me the salary cap rules. Is it 60% of turnover or income?
Well, it's the same thing. Revenue. It's
right.
Revenue. So we're projected to have 20. I think Simon said 20 or 22 million. We'd lost 8 million this year because of the loss of the football money. 33% of our revenue turnover we won't have. But notwithstanding that, because the rules are different in League One and League Two, we are able to spend more than, because our turnover revenue is higher than other clubs. And I don't know whether we've done that. I mean,
so am I right in saying then? Am I right in saying that our playing budget, our transfer kitty, if you like, our salary cap, the most we're allowed to spend is around the 12-13 million pound mark?
Yeah, that's what the salary cap management protocol are. And interestingly, according to the last accounts of Exeter, they were at 57 or 58% of their revenue. We're down below 50%. We were in the Championship, and I'm sure we are again this year. So the point I'm making, we are not maxing out the level of playing budget that we could under the rules. So I think it was indicated, Simon or Andrew said 8 or 9 million, but that's double Stevenage, double Exeter. Something is wrong when we're spending double, and look at where we are and what we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, good evening. I wish we were talking in better circumstances than we currently are. I have just checked. Not these days, it seems. I have just checked. Still no Owen Dale announcement. As I say, Argyle may well have just scheduled the announcement for a certain time of day. The usual protocols are still in place. As long as you get a deal sheet submitted to the Football Association by the deadline, you get an extended little period to go through the finer details and things. But we are not expecting any more than Law McCabe and Owen Dale to come through the door. Adam, what's your school report of the summer transfer window?
I mean, I'll give it an E for the fact that we signed to lie, because for a minute it looked like we were getting nobody up front, and that would have been a complete disaster. Not that this isn't already, by the way. I often find when it comes to transfer windows, and if you're probably, a few of you will have had me say this before, that I try not to get too carried away on recent results when trying to judge a transfer window, because I think back to the winter 2024 under Ian Foster, when we'd just beaten Cardiff at that point and got to the end, and it felt like, okay, well, maybe we've had a decent window here, and it turned out actually no, we'd left ourselves pretty understocked in key areas. So I try not to go too far the other way and think, well, we've just lost to Cardiff now. I mean, it's maybe this transfer window is bad, but it's not as if this wasn't coming beforehand. It's not as if I've gone through the transfer window thinking it's been great and, oh, hang on, it might not have been as good as I thought. This transfer window from start to finish has felt like an absolute disaster. And but for getting a centre forward out of the hat, it would have been an unmitigated disaster, which I agree, for many people, it may well already feel that way. And I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that at all. And it's another thing I've said before. It's expectation management of going into this window and telling us what we should expect to see and what we've actually seen. And if anybody in our who's viewing rather than listening has just seen my face get a bit brighter, because I've opened the club statement on my screen here that Simon Hallett put out just after Miron Muslic left, and there's a couple of lines really that have aged like milk, quite honestly. When you look at the idea of our circumstances, though, are much changed because of the investment we've made and the support you have given us. We will have the financial resources to compete strongly at the top end of the division. Now, as Graham said, we do have that money there, and we do have money and our budget that is significantly higher than clubs around and indeed above us. It goes back to the question, where is it? What's been done to it? Has it been spent on the team and spent absolutely terribly? Or has it been spent away from the first team, which is turning into a bit of an elephant in the room in Folkestone Park? Has money been diverted to Folkestone Park? It looks like it has. Because if it's just gone on this team, then oh my God, what have you been doing with it? You shouldn't be trusted with 10 pence, not 10 million. Jesus Christ! If that's the top six budget and that's what you pulled together, yeah, it's not competent. So what I'm imagining is no, that money has been spent elsewhere, and we're not actually close to 60% of our turnover or revenue, or whichever word we want to use on it, being spent on our playing budget. And I've been happy to come out to bat for the board for a while on Folkestone Park. It's now beyond a joke. I can understand if you're trying to build infrastructure, trying to keep yourself in the Championship, something may need to suffer here and there. If you drop down to League One, it's unfortunate, but it's something you recover from. When you pull this together in League One and you're spending this much money on infrastructure, it's not good enough. It's not even close to good enough. And it's doubly bad when you consider the fact that actually what we've been doing with our academy, the whole reason for investing in Folkestone Park in the first place, has been to bring through players to sell on for many millions. Well, we've sold Michael Cooper and Adam Randall in that time for a comparative pittance. We should easily, in an ideal world or an ideal window, have got at the very least double what we got for both of those players.
And let's not forget, Adam, whilst we're on that subject, we didn't have to sell Michael Cooper when we did for what we did. Michael Cooper was contracted to Plymouth Argyle. We could have demanded whatever fee we wanted for Michael Cooper, and yet we took 2 million. And yet you see what other goalkeepers who Michael Cooper was rated higher in PFA Teams of the Year and Teams of the Year and getting Golden Gloves and things, and Michael Cooper went for nothing compared to them.
Yeah. And if this is the idea, I think the whole point we've got in this, and it links actually to where Folkestone Park has been seen our funds get led awry, is that it just doesn't feel like the left hand knows what the right hand is doing at this point. It feels like the communication at the top level is dead. It feels like the strategy that we've come up with in terms of buying players in and selling them for a profit and investing in youth to sell for a profit, it just isn't working at all. And it's a thing that I think was brought up in the first hour as well, when we were looking at, how the lines of communication just feel completely disjointed and completely bizarre. We were told we don't want to focus on loan players in this season because we want to do things differently, apparently, because we've been scorned in the past. Well, being scorned in the past was Morgan Whittaker being recalled in the year we won the title, and B, Finn Azaz being recalled after a summer where for some reason you didn't buy him. And B, on that point, well, we've got the situation today where we're scrambling for loans. We're scrambling to get any loan player we possibly can. A few have turned us down. A few look like they've arrived and eventually will. But where's the strategy there? That the message is completely mixed. Tom Cleverley saying he wants experience in his post-Cardiff press conference. we signed a 19-year-old. I hope he's fantastic, but again, who's communicating with who there? Who's letting that line get out for it to be something completely different?
Just 48 hours ago,
48
he
hours.
pleaded for an experienced midfielder.
And yeah, we've signed our youngest midfielder, I think, to get that. So yeah, brilliant. Cheers, guys. And yeah, it goes further as well. It's not just recently that line of communication has broken down. I recall going through, I think it was the 4th of July when we just completed the signing. I think it was Pepper on that day, and seeing an interview with David Fox where he was saying, okay, we've brought in a few development players, and now we're going to look to improve. And everyone that comes in now is for the first team squad. And we didn't sign another player for the best part of 6 weeks. What's the deal there? It's a complete mess. The fact I give it an E, now I think about it as being a bit generous, but I'm going to say it because it could have been worse. Somehow it could have been worse. And I'm just going to take one more line from this statement. It's something that's stuck with me since it happened, because it was, I think, the first time I'd seen this board take a bit of responsibility for things that have gone wrong in the last 2 years. A line in the club statement that said, "We are sorry and we will do everything we can to put it right." Jokers.
There we go. That is strong from somebody who is usually Switzerland when it comes to these sorts of arguments. So you can safely say the Argyle Life congregation are rattled when Adam Price pulls out the soapbox as he has. Ben, good evening. We touched briefly on Cardiff. I really didn't want to give it much time of day, to be honest with you. But one of the things that really shocked me and stunned me was this was a team who finished below us last season. Their starting 11 featured only 3 of the starting 11 that played against us in February, and they looked twice the team that we were on Saturday.
You're not going to ask me for my grade. I feel offended. Don't care.
You can throw your grade into that answer as well, but where has it gone wrong? Because I said the other day to somebody that 2 years ago, the football club had the city at its feet. We had a platform to build from and things. This is how much of a struggle the last 12 months have been. It was 12 months ago the club had the city at its feet after beating Hull on the final day. We had that platform there to take us to a level that was scarcely believable for this football club within a matter of recent years. And now we've made decisions in the last 12 months that have set us back to further than where we were 3 years ago.
So
what's going on?
I think there's a few things. Firstly, like us staying up on the last day versus Hull was brilliant, but it could easily have gone the other way. If we'd lost, it would then have been, well, that was a disaster. And I don't want to sort of say that we were in an absolute prime position then to sort of to explode. It was maybe perhaps more precarious than we perhaps thought. But then we absolutely did ourselves dirty by appointing Wayne Rooney. And I think it was kind of the writing on the wall from that point on, as much as Muslich came in and steadied the ship. I think that there's a thing in game theory called primacy bias, and in psychology generally, which is that the first thing you experience when you meet someone or when you experience something, you do something, has a really strong and unbalanced effect on the way you perceive. So, if the first time you were in an aeroplane, you experienced chronic turbulence, it's quite reasonable that you'll have a fear of flying thereafter. Whereas if you've been in a plane 3 or 4 times, it's been fine, and you experience some turbulence, it won't have as big a psychological effect on you. And I kind of feel like Simon Hallett and Andrew Parkinson in particular had a really great appointment in Ryan Lowe and Stephen Schumacher, who came with him, and made a very good decision to then appoint Stephen Schumacher when Ryan Lowe went. And I feel like we all, and maybe even they themselves, thought, God, these guys really know what they're doing. And that might have been unfair on them in the sense that they weren't, the genius that they thought they were, we thought they were, which isn't trying to dig them out and say that, they're rubbish. But I think we've been expecting a lot of punching above our weight recently, and that's not fair. I think where the problem is now, as Graham rightly pointed out, is it's absolutely fine to punch your weight, but if you're punching below your weight, that's a problem, because that's just competence. That's the level at which you need to operate. And if we're operating at a top 6 budget, you know, let's be fair here. We've spent close to 2 million this season, if you include loan fees and agent fees and stuff. That does not look like a budget. A team that's cost 2 million to put together. Even if you were to sort of like say Talai, take Talai out of it, his was an expensive fee. You know, like even he so far hasn't looked like a 1.2 million player, given he's literally been airdropped in and expected to adapt on the fly. I'm not going to blame him for that. It seems a strange concoction that we've put together, that it seems completely imbalanced. You know, youth is great, selling players on is great. You need experience in there. Where is it? And I'd kind of like to get away from the recruitment side a little bit in terms of where it's gone wrong, and because someone can look good on paper, on the video and on the stat sheet, and it just not work, and that happens for But Beidou record signing was rubbish for us. It happens regardless. So I can kind of almost forgive that we've brought in players and they haven't performed to the level perhaps we wanted them to. My biggest concern with the window, and where I would chalk it up and where I think the problems exist, is what I was trying to get at with my comment about the primacy bias of, that great appointment, and then we think, oh, we're in great safe hands here. The communication from the club this season and the sort of like what we perceive of their strategy, etc., has been absolutely horrendous. We've talked a little bit about things that Tom Cleverley said, I need an experienced midfielder, and then we've gone out and brought in a 19-year-old. Potentially we're going to get Owen Dale in. He seems a slightly more experienced sort of player. That don't know if that fits the bill that Cleverley was after. But
don't jump the gun just yet. He's not
no, exactly
technically in the door at the moment.
Yeah, sure. But we're shipping. We've played 6 games and conceded 13 goals, but apparently we don't need to sign it. We're not looking to sign any defenders because we're happy there. And I think anyone can see that we shouldn't be happy with the state of our defence, even if we're okay in terms of numbers. I don't think we've got the requisite quality, really. And if with one breath he's saying, I'm happy with my defence, we're not looking to sign someone. Maybe that's just, towing the party line. Then in the next breath, he's saying there's an absolute golfing class against Cardiff, and we can't compete with that. And I didn't put Finn on the bench to play because I just wanted to kind of shield him from getting smashed, almost accepting that we were going to get beat in a way before we got there, or at least that there was a possibility that was going to happen. So which is it? Are we happy with the defence, or are we so bad that you thought we were going to get beat before we even set foot on the pitch versus Cardiff? You can't have it both ways. And I've got, I'll have a Cleverley rant in a bit because there's a lot there that red flags are beginning to go off. But I feel like there's been a lot of that. There was this talk of top 6 budget. And again, we do have a top 6 budget potentially, but the way it's been spent, it was spoken of in a way that, we're really going to be pushing to go back up. And then we had that statement a few weeks ago, which was like, it's going to be a rebuilding process. Like, it's no good saying that. We'd have all accepted that, I think. If that had been the first statement about the summer window, look, it's going to be a rebuild. We're going to have a massive churn of players. We've got a top budget and we're going to invest it because, we believe it's our fault. We've got here, like, the statement said, we're sorry. We're going to do what we can, but it might not all come off first time because with a big churn of players, you're going to get some duds. You're going to get some failures. We'd have all gone, yeah, that's fair enough. But the fact that it was marketed from the off as we're going to come out swinging, and again, it's a Cleverley thing, but Fox was talking about it again. We're going for promotion. Cleverley said, I've got a top 6 squad, and it's on me and the coaches to make them into a top 2 squad. And it's like, if he thought that about his squad, he was either wildly wrong, I worry about his judgment, or because he's changed his tune. Not that I'm saying I think the squad's bad, but he thought that squad was great, and now he's saying there's a massive golfing class. He obviously wildly misjudged his squad, which makes me question his judgment, or he was just spouting hot air, trying to say the things that he thought the fans would like to hear, which is, again, a really bad look. So I feel like my biggest issue with this window is the way, as I think Finn said on the previous segment, the left hand doesn't seem to know what the right hand is doing. There doesn't seem to be a clear organization in the recruitment structure. Who's in charge of what? Who's making the decisions? Who's finding the players? Who's suggesting them? Who's approaching them? Who's deciding on the budget and wage concerns, etc.? We really don't know. Everything seems almost Byzantine in the way it's running at the minute, and we've gone very quickly, as you were saying, Joe, about where we were with Harlan, even with Dewsnip. You knew, as Sam has said previously, you knew who was in charge. There came to a point where I don't think he was tenable here, but you kind of understood how it worked. You know, Jimmy Dickinson would say, "These are our players." Neil would talk with the manager the head coach, to say, "Who do you like?" And then it would sort of go on to Andrew Parkinson saying, "This is who we want, please." And there'd presumably then be that discussion between Parkinson and Dewsnip about, you know, maybe one would get their way, the other, etc. At the moment, it's absolutely, like I say, Byzantine. I've got no idea who's doing what. And that's where I think we've fallen off. I think we've taken our eye off the ball structurally. I think we've forgotten how important the club is. You know, the club likes to talk about one Argyle. Well, one Argyle should mean everybody knows what they're doing. Everyone's singing from the same proverbial hymn sheet. And I don't see that at the minute. We've had manager change after manager change, where we've had stylistic change after stylistic change. And I think that's been a big issue. I think that no one's really got a long-term view of this. We've gone to this European model. Great. But the idea of the European model is you have a consistent sort of theme. And what we've brought in just on this season, for example, is like, where's the theme there? I see youth. I see young players who've got injury records and so are therefore probably available on the cheap. And you hope that then they can stay fit for a season and maybe you can make a profit. But that's not really a stylistic or footballing philosophy that we've sort of got there. That's where I think the biggest problem is. I think if all the right noises have been made behind the scenes and we just had a bad recruitment window, I wouldn't really care. I'd say that sucks. It's one of those things. We've had massive churn. It's to be expected. My biggest concern is the absolute nonsense of the communication. You know, last point I'll make on this, we go back to the Fox thing. Now, he was, in his defense, he was trying to make a very balanced point about, if the right player's there for a loan, of course we'll go for him, because you can get in players that are above your level. But we're not going to do it just for the sake of it. What is this signing today, if not a signing for the sake of it? I mean, the guy might be a great player at Law, but what is he adding that we don't have? We've already got youth. We've already got a bit of sort of, now, you know, we've just got Tegan Finn signing a new contract, which is absolutely to be celebrated. But we've got our own young promising players. I'm not saying he's not going to be better than Finn or more developed in his progression, etc. But what is he adding to this squad that we didn't already kind of have? We want someone in, surely, who is going to be adding something we don't have. It's the very definition of the sort of loan, in my eyes, that David Fox said we weren't going to go for. You know, he said the only time we'll go for a loan because of the costs, etc., is if they're bringing something we don't have. And then on the deadline day, we've gone out and got a loan in, which just seems to have been done for the sake of it. The very antithesis of what he was suggesting as our approach. And it's that kind of thing that worries me more than anything else. The players is what it is. Some of them might come good, you know, give them some time, or even if they go up, you know, there might be players who struggle here, move on and be brilliant. But it's the behind the scenes stuff that really worries me, that we've gone from being perceived, if not actually being well run, to being quite publicly a shambles.
Joe, can I just make
absolutely Graham, very quickly? I'll let you do it in a second.
I'm going to give you one bit of transfer news. Devante Cole, West Brom. Where's he gone to?
I know this, so I'm not going to answer it. But
he's gone to Port Vale on a free transfer. Why wasn't he on our list?
I was talking up Devante Cole. I've been talking up Devante Cole since we were in Austria.
How can we be losing players to Port Vale?
You say that, Graham, but I do have some breaking news for you, because we are going to be losing one player. Freddie Asaka has left Plymouth Argyle this evening to join Bristol Rovers on a season-long loan. So Asaka is out the door. Owen Dale is still not in the door, but Freddie Asaka is out the door.
That's another thing.
We have some news for. Hang on, Bet. I need to go.
Yeah, you crack on, mate.
So I'm signing off. 4,100 of you have given up your Monday evening so far. Something tells me these boys aren't done just yet. I'm going to leave it in Ben's capable hands. If you've sent a question in the first 90 minutes, they have been starred. Ben will try and get to as many of them as he can in the amount of time that the boys are willing to give up, because there is so much to talk about. It's been a bonkers summer. It's not been the summer we all expected and hoped it would be. I haven't been transferred. I just double booked myself. It's not been the transfer window we all hoped it would have been. It's not been the preparation into life that we all thought it would have been. There is still time. Deal sheets have been submitted, I'm sure, and we can still get deals announced and over the line. Free agents can still be signed for as long as we like. Let's just wait and see. From me, it's been great fun, as it always is, bringing you Deadline Day on Green and White. It's my Christmas. I love this programme. The tie is going to be hung up. It's going to be hung up now until the winter window slams shut. So I'm going to leave you in Ben's very capable hands. Enjoy the rest of the show. Ben, over to you.
Thanks, mate. I will. Oh, I've automatically rotated to the host corner. I kind of wanted to get all of my waffle and ranting out just then before I took over the host duties. So I'll now finish that off maybe by positing a question to you guys, and that's Tom Cleverley. What are we making of his reign so far? This is not a let's dig out Tom Cleverley. I'd like a genuine discussion of it. He's a young manager, and I think he even if he's not doing great, deserves time. But I'm a little bit worried now that we're still playing the system we're playing, which doesn't suit any of our defenders and maybe one of our midfielders. We've got really, I mean, let's look at a team who plays 4-2-3-1 really well. That's Arne Slot's Liverpool. What have they just gone out and signed this summer? 2 rapid, lung monster fullbacks who can cover the spaces that get exposed in behind. They've also got 2 great athletic screening defensive midfielders who, again, can fill those pockets in the centre that can get opened up when you're pressing high and hard. We don't really have any of those players. I know, obviously, not to that level, but we saw against Cardiff, the ball went in behind Souks, or Souks was run at. We had to concede the space. Then the defensive midfielders have to drop and fill the pockets of space, and then there's men coming into the box, and vice versa when we're having to press from the middle against dribbles or passing and movement through the middle. We're getting played through because our defensive midfielders don't seem defensively or positionally rather aware enough to cover the ground effectively. And Cardiff are just generating such easy touches within the box. And we're not going to be playing Cardiff every week, as has been mentioned earlier, but I don't think it was unique to the Cardiff game. Now, would Tom Cleverley be abandoning his what he's set up to play before the end of the window? I don't think he would or should, because he's in anticipation of things moving and people coming in. You know, he was talking about a central midfielder coming in for about 6 different pre-match interviews. Get asked, oh yeah, someone's imminent. And in the end, I'm just going to have to stop saying it because I'm making myself look silly. And that wasn't his fault. That's clearly what he was being told by the recruitment team. So it's not his fault that this system isn't working. I think he's been let down with what he's been provided. But he'd also talked himself up as being a flexible manager, someone who's not dogmatic. So my question to you guys is, after all that big setup, if we persist with this 4-2-3-1, is that a red flag for you with Tom Cleverley, or do you think that he's within his rights to play this as that's what he sold to the board, and they probably reassured he would be equipped to play?
Well, against Swansea, he actually played 4-4, either 4-4-1-1 or 4-4-2, if you like. And to be fair, for most of the Cardiff game, he did the same. The problem is that the central 2 partnership, Boateng's been a star player. I think almost remarkably, every game we've played, he's been our top player. But is he the ball-winning number 6 that we were looking for? I don't think he is. We've got Ibrahim, who giant striding. In fact, Tom Cleverley in his press conference today hinted that he wasn't the right man for the two in the middle, and he's going to play him further forward. And that may well be his best position, and certainly might stand a better chance of avoiding the odd yellow card here and there if he's further forward. Because one of the reasons why he's got yellow cards is because he's chasing back, always overstretching. And you talk about injuries. If you're going to play a high pressing game, it's stop, start, stretch. And I think that's a contributory factor to why we are getting injuries, the way we're playing, because we're playing chase ball all the time. How many times have we dominated a game this season? Even the Blackpool game, you can't say we seem to start well, then we get copped an early goal and heads go down. But even the Blackpool game, first half, they got on top of us the second part of the first half. And it was only when we scored that everybody was lifted. And we've only scored first in one game this season. And we fold. And that's because, as you say, we're being run through, right through the middle. I'd love to see our winning tackles, our duels, our second ball stats. Because one thing is say about Muslich is that was our forte. We played higher up the pitch and we won a lot more second ball and played from there. Now we're trying to play it through. We're not the best at playing out because we haven't got that skill set to do it with the players that we've got. So we're getting caught. And once we lose the ball, we don't look like we're going to get it back. And invariably, it leads to a chance or a goal. I mean, as you say, Cardiff, I don't think they got out of third gear after the second goal. They were just waltzing through us, and we haven't addressed it. And I'm sat here in disbelief that we haven't got a team with the physicality that we need to compete at League One level. And you say about Tom Cleverley, well, he hasn't been at League One level. The thing about Ryan Lowe and Shuey and was that they knew what it took, and they knew that the sum of the parts, the whole was greater than the sum of the parts. Here, it's the other way around, and we're not set up to compete in League One, and it's going to cost us. Personally, I think we'll rescue it, but we've got a run of games. I mean, if we lose at home to Stockport, away to Luton, then it's one in 8, and then you're looking, crikey, that's a massive hurdle to get back on the road and overcome. So we've got to get a result against Stockport by whatever method. But no, I'm like many of us after the Blackpool and Swansea game, there was some positivity. You could see what we're doing, and suddenly Cardiff, like it was last season, crikey, that was the biggest wake-up call of all. And we had it again. Cardiff have given us a wake-up call again, and we haven't addressed it since Saturday.
Yeah, true. And I think we've all been holding out that maybe something, you don't want to be premature, but now the window's closed, and I think we can now start being a bit more final in our judgment. Adam, any comments on systems, on this, great individuals, as Graham was saying, but maybe not the synergy we need, missing profiles that the squad has, anything like that? And then I'll get onto some of the starred comments as we hopefully hear that there's been some paperwork submitted in time.
Crossed. I mean, in terms of what we're looking at with Cleverley and the system and the state of the club at the moment, I think a couple of things here can be and indeed are true at the same time. Is Tom Cleverley the main reason we are in this mess at present? Absolutely not. Alternatively, could he have done a little better with what he's got? And are there a few worries in the way that we've gone about it with the performances? Yes, I think there are. There, if not huge red flags, then possibly a couple of amber ones, if that's the correct way of putting it, in what we've seen so far. Because the system lacks in so many areas for how he wants to operate, and not all of that's his fault. He should have a better squad, and the people that are recruiting that squad have failed to provide that to him. But when that's the case, don't persist with the system when it's clearly not going to work. Ben, you made an excellent point about the fullbacks at Liverpool. Those are two players that are crucial to that system that we simply don't have relative to our level. We don't have that sort of player in the middle who can allow us to play through the thirds effectively, who can pick up the ball from the defence, who can distribute it to the attackers, and just be the sort of shuttler, as it were, to allow us to build up the pitch. We don't have that. Maybe Lord McCabe will be that player, but it's a hell of a lot of pressure to put on a 19-year-old playing in his first full senior season to make an entire system work. And in addition to that, the winger situation is bizarre as well. I mean, I'd like to think I've made you aware enough now about my thoughts about Ballymumba as a winger, i.e. he isn't one. But we've also got the injury to Amici as well, which is unfortunate. But we also signed Amici knowing he was very injury prone. So it's not, it was never going to be impossible that he might miss a few games here and there. And aside from that, yes, Dale's there. Yes, we've got Tegan Brint again. If you're going to use that to make a system work, it's a hell of a lot of pressure to put on a 17-year-old playing his first full season. And on top of all of that, we've just let Freddie Asaka go. Now, that Asaka deal in its own right is absolutely fine. I think he does need a loan move. I think Bristol Rovers is a great destination, and I think he'll do well, and we'll gain from it. But when you're insisting that you need to play wingers in your system, and you've got the one out-and-out winger you've got on your books at this moment in time is a 17-year-old who's fit, I mean, those are alarm bells ringing. And surely a man of Tom Cleverley's calibre, who I have no doubt works incredibly hard for this football club. I'm desperate for him to succeed. He clearly wants to succeed, and if he does, I think we'll be in for a brilliant time, because he's clearly the sort of personality we can all get behind. But if somebody of his calibre persist with this, when we don't have the fullbacks to play it, we don't have the wingers to play it, we don't have the midfielders to play it. I mean, where do we have the players to make this work? It's hard to see, to be honest. And yeah, that does concern me absolutely. He's not been, and I will reiterate again, he's not been given the squad he needs. He's not been given the squad he deserves. But it feels like a year ago, we were mentioning, and a few people were saying, oh, well, no manager could have done better with the squad that had been served up for Wayne Rooney. And look what happened. We changed the system, we got a better manager in, and we got results. Now, I'm not suggesting for a second that we should look to get another manager in immediately. Tom Cleverley needs time, and I think we all accept this is a long-term process. But he could certainly be doing a little bit better with what he's got now, even if, as we said, the responsibility for where we are lies above his head and whoever's in control, which, to be honest, I don't think any of us, let alone them, know who's in control at the moment. So I'd really love to see a change of system against Stockport at the weekend. I don't think we're going to. That's a concern. But what I've really loved is for the last 3 months to have actually been a bit proactive and got the squad together that a change of system needs. And let's not forget, it's a really huge change of system that we've had to go through from Muslich to Cleverley. This is a completely different way of playing. As Graham, you mentioned, the way we're looking to build in every possible way under Tom Cleverley is different to Muslich. So we needed to have that overhaul. And by the way, it's not the first time that's happened over a summer or over a transfer window. Schumacher changed his own system in one window. Then we went to another system with Ian Foster, to another system with Wayne Rooney, to another system with Muslich, to another system with Tom Cleverley. There's no continuity or synergy there at all. And if you're going to do this, you need to back your boss. And we haven't. And that compounded with an insistence on a system that's not working, it leaves me very worried.
Bartley tells us that X has a video of Dale in an Argyle top at Home Park. So we presume they're just waiting till we're off air to spite us so that we can't announce it on our deadline day stream. But at least that's encouraging. Got the potential to add some nous and some experience, which I think we desperately need. You made a good point, Adam, that it's good for Freddie Asaka in a vacuum to be off to get some experience, but with this small squad that Tom Cleverley seems to favour, maybe wasn't optimal in terms of the context.
No, I think, can I say, on an individual basis, there are a lot of players, both in and out, that we've transferred we've made in this window, where in a vacuum you'd say, Yeah, fair enough. I can see why you've done that. I can see why we'd want to take a risk on somebody like Owen Aseni, who's comes in relatively cheaply and may work out for us. If not, it's no great loss. I can see why we'd want to loan out Freddie Asaka, getting that experience. A lot of the players we've brought in, I can see arguments for that. Yes, that like a deal on an individual basis, this guy could work out. But when you're putting your entire strategy on this and the entire synergy of, well, as I'm going to overuse the phrase again, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, it becomes a mess, as we've seen. And yeah, there's a lot of deals like that where I'd look at and go, okay, I can see where you've done that. But when every single deal, more or less, is one that you have to look at and dig deep and say, oh, I can see why you may have made that move. Maybe that'll work out, rather than getting anything proven, feels very stupid to me. I think the Asaka deal is a symptom of that, where if you told me a month or two ago that Freddie Asaka was going to spend the season at Bristol Rovers, I think that's absolutely terrific. And to be fair, it may still work out. To sanction that deal now feels very strange to me.
Yeah, tangentially, it's sort of like in a vacuum, it looks good. I'd bet my life that this squad looks better with Nathaniel Ogbeta and Callum Wright in it currently. Even if it was Wright sort of putting something in, snapping around ankles in the middle. I feel like, again, they're going back to my point of the decision making off the field being worse or more of a concern than the recruitment. I think this is again one of those in isolation a great move, but not necessarily contextually. Graham, any thoughts on Freddie Asaka going to on loan to Bristol Rovers? Good for him to get some minutes, if nothing else.
Well, on the assumption that we've got the elusive man who's yet to be named, it seems logical. Don't forget, we can always call him back in January if we need to, for any reason. I mean, he might set League Two on fire, and we might got a much improved player that will benefit the squad second half of the season. So it was either him or Callum Roberts. I suggested it was going to go out, and Callum Roberts, and Freddie's gone. I wish him well. I think it'll do him good. And but yeah, everybody's deflated. I see the Passotti results said 64%. I think it's a poor window, but it's bizarre. As I keep coming back to the fact that we've spent more money on one player than any other club in the division, or equal with Huddersfield, and we've spent $1 million on 3 players.
Yeah,
just under, and we're still thinking we're woefully short. It's really, really strange. But I'm a bit more worried. As I say, Tom Cleverley wears his heart on his sleeve. If I was to coach him, I'd say rein it in. Don't say too much, because you know what the internet world's like. Yeah, every word. I mean, the same with any statement made by Andrew Parkinson or Simon Hallett or the board, it's sort of dissected almost word by word. And one thing I will say, the board statement that came out, I think it's the 23rd of August, was one of the worst worded statements I've ever seen. It must have been rushed out, because I got to the game and everyone said, why are we spending $23.5 million on Fulston Park? I said, well, we're not. Well, that's what the statement said. And when you read it, that's what it intimates. So automatically it goes and spirals off. And if you look at the wording of that statement compared to the one Adam said at the end of last season, the objectives have changed. Now we're looking more medium term, long term. Yeah, that thought process of getting back, we're going to have a top 6 budget and all the rest of it. Well, the reality is, and Andrew and Simon will know this, it isn't. And if anybody's banking their hopes on the fans forum, that fans forum is purely on the financial statements of the club. They've made that clear. It's going to be 1 hour. So nobody's going to get the chance to talk about the success or otherwise of the window. That's not going to happen. Where's the money gone? It's going to be accounted for. We've lost 33% of our revenue, and Fulston Park, and I will defend Simon on this, and I have done publicly many times. That decision was made in November 2023. of his own volition, his own money, to put it into a project for the sporting benefit of the city. And if he hadn't put that 11 million in or committed to it, the other 11, 12 million would not have happened, because a lot of it was grant funding depending on this level of investment. And if he hadn't made it, then we wouldn't have had an academy. Albion wouldn't have had their much improved facilities and 3D pitches. The hub at Brickfields wouldn't have been so structured for the Argyle Community Trust. The hockey club will never have pitches. It was an investment in the city, and I think it needs to be disassociated. People think, well, you should spend that 11 million on players or on wages. He's never done that. He's only invested for the future of the club, which is why we're going to end up with a 20 million pound turnover. And hopefully, depending, I mean, crowds will drop off, but I don't think they drop off so alarmingly. We should be able to hold our own financially in League One. Whereas if he hadn't have done that, that drop from the Championship to League One would have hurt us financially. And there's only one group of people that bails you out, and that is the shareholders. So they would have to put more money in just to keep still. So on Fulston Park, I will defend him. That's not the reason why we are where we are.
I think everyone on largely on the pod, as we've discussed in the chat, are supportive of the arrangements at Fulston Park. I think that, as you say, we've lost 33% of our turnover, and yet we're still projecting at making what we would have made had we not sold Whittaker, etc. And that goes to show that the club is being run well. I'm assuming that extra turnover has come from because we're going to be losing TV money, etc. But if you look at what we made last year, which was 31 against the projected, which is 20 to 22 this year, if you take out the player sales, that's essentially the same income. So what we've lost in that 33% that we've lost is actually down to the player sales. We've recouped the TV money with perhaps the concerts, etc., etc. Now, obviously, as opposed to TV money, there are associated costs with those. So while the turnover is still effectively what it was last year minus the player sales, that won't be profit, and therefore that will impact what can go back into the team, etc. I think the club's in a good place as a business. I think someone said, one of the comments, I can't find it now, that was further up, is that's all well and good to be a good business, but you kind of feel like a bit of a customer rather than a stakeholder. And I think, well, that's you kind of have to pick your poison. I know where I am on that, but I can also understand people being a big fan of that and the financial stability of the club. I think the proof's going to be in the pudding, isn't it? We've had a couple of really good years. We've had a couple of meh years, and now we've had a bit of a stinker since Rudy to this point. I think we can agree with that. Maybe some highs under Muslich, Liverpool, etc. So I guess it's kind of going back to my point about primacy bias. Do we wait and see where things might pick up? We might have a crack in January window if there's still budget available that we haven't spent. We're hoping we haven't spent it all on what we've got now. We make a good fist. We push up upper mid-table. Then we're talking differently. We're saying maybe next season we can aim for something, back for promotion. Maybe it's not as bad as we freaked out about. I think it's very easy to feel the effects of the most recent decisions, and the most recent decisions have been bad. We can't forget there have been some good decisions and some good organisation at some points in recent history, and we've got to hope that somehow there's an internal review or a shake-up somewhere, and we kind of get back to those structures that were working at one point. I think. Let's have a look at some of these starred questions. First question: by how many goals would a team of players that left us this window beat a team of players that have joined us? I think that's a little bit disingenuous, that question, but I think it's to be expected that we're going to lose our better players. And I think David Fox alluded to this. Most of our players, barring say like Houghton, he's gone into the same league as us. Wright and better, but most players have left for better teams, and that's to be expected, isn't it, when you come down from the Championship?
All
I
that
don't
being
think.
said, and I don't
Yeah.
want to mix up my metaphors here, they would beat us by an innings.
Yeah, yeah, no, I would agree. I'm not Joe, but this one was obviously put in early doors. Did you have something to say, Graham? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that hasn't been mentioned are the performances of the players that we still have that were with us in the Championship. I mean, it's unaccountable how Suchi's gone backwards. It seems to have gone backwards in pace, in position. Barley, what can you say? I mean, he's just not the same player. Certainly not the same player he was in our 101 season, where he was wing back, and I think it was he player of the year in that year. I think he was, yeah. So he's gone backwards. So that Joe Edwards, let's be honest, he's finding the pace more challenging than he used to be. I think he's very good in it. I have him as an impact player to bring on towards the end of the game if ever we're in the chance of winning it. I see him in that role. I don't see him as a starter necessarily, because the pace that he had a few years ago, he just doesn't seem to have. He's had a series of injuries. So the Championship players we've had haven't performed for us. So I would say that. But just going back to Tom Cleverley, it's this head coach European model that worries me. We're a League One club now, and League One, we had 2 seasons under Shuey, where the first season we learnt, and we nearly made it up into the playoffs. The second season we outperformed everybody because we knew what League One was about. We knew, if you remember, when we played Wickham away, what did Shuey do? He played all the big physical and played them, and we won. Can you imagine this current team matching any physical team in this division? You only have to look at Lincoln.
Yeah.
I mean, they were, when you look at the line, when players line, I sit on the halfway line, I look at the line and we're like that, then you get the opposition and they're higher and bigger, and you think, oh God. And I think we've misjudged League One and what you need to compete. Yeah. And yes, we've got some players with ability and potential, but I mean, we signed 2 development players, Aseni and Peppel, and I think both under Tom Cleverley's watch. I think they were both signed under him. And I would go, why? 2, 1 maybe. You've paid 300,000 for one, and yes, you can see something in him. And the other one, was it 65,000? He comes on and scores 2 goals and looks good. But we only needed one. I'd rather have gone somewhere else in the midfield. We are weak in midfield. Unless you bring Brendan Wiradu into the middle, we've got no height, no player that's going to win a ball in the air, first or second ball in midfield.
Yeah, no, I agree. And on a tangent to that, Stevie Vaughan says it's been our worst transfer window ever. I think there's an argument for that. I'm not going to go. I mean, there's times we haven't been able to sign anybody, etc. But in terms of pound for pound, in terms of value for what's been put in, I think there's an argument that's that it's got it. You could make an argument for it. Who shoulders the blame for the recruitment? I was going to say I'll come back to you, Graham, and then I'll come to you, Adam, with the same question, because I want to know what you guys think here, because it's very easy to say the board, the recruitment team, etc. But where are we pointing the fingers? We don't really know who's doing what within the system, within the machination. But is it we're identifying the wrong targets? Is it someone should be saying, look, that's a great guy in a vacuum, but he doesn't fit this system, and we need some more experience or some more size, as Graham you mentioned? Where's the flaws? Where's the problems? Where's this gone wrong?
2 things that we haven't mentioned. Actually, we lost our head of data, and I know everybody says, well, data's, why don't we go to the old scouting system? But Ross Goodwin was a leader in his field, and he was responsible for getting the data set that set our success. and Jimmy Dickinson had a great contact book. I mean, Neil Dewsnip had a fantastic contacts book. He could ring anybody up, Gareth Southgate downwards. We've lost all that. We've got a head of football operations, and don't forget his day job isn't just recruitment. It's looking after all the hotels, coaches, and all sorts of, all the setting up of how the team operates. And we've got somebody who we've never heard of. I don't know whether he came in because Miron Mueslicher is here or how Tom Randall arrived. I don't know. But there can be no doubt that we have less quality in that department than we've had for the previous years that has underpinned our overachievement model. And whether this consultancy role has had anything to do with it, I don't know. These are questions that can be legitimately raised, because we all said wait until the first end at 7 p.m. 1st of September.
Yeah,
here we are.
I think that's a good point. Jimmy Dickinson's not a small loss either. There is a lot.
Yeah,
and
he
Guy,
was underrated. Yes, Beidou. I mean, we were going to sign him in the summer. Don't forget, and it fell through on the last day. So, if we'd signed him then, would he have been a better player than he turned out to be when we did? Don't know.
Adam, what are your thoughts on where the blame falls, where the axe should fall, as it may potentially?
Agree with that, and agree that there are some losses I think that have been underestimated, particularly in the case of Jimmy Dickinson, and replacing those losses in the back room has been mismanaged, shall we say. And ultimately, that goes to the top on the person making the decisions. And ultimately, a chief executive who has presided over this transfer window should not expect to retain their employment. Andrew Parkinson is ultimately where it ends up, where the blame lies. There's obviously much that's happened there, but he's the one responsible for replacing these people. He's the one responsible for the overall management of the football club. He's failed. If the axe is going to go anywhere, it's there. And I just cannot see a way back for Parkinson at this stage. And I think in the cold light of day, if he does fall on his sword, we could look at it in a similar way to the way we've looked at Neil Dewsnip, where there were some decisions that he made that made his position untenable, but we were then able to recognise the good he'd done for the club up until that point, there was a lot of good that Dewsnip has done. There was a lot of good that Parkinson has done. But I think the decisions that he's made, certainly in the past 2 years, and how he's managed this window is totally unacceptable with the way expectations have gone. If blame lies anywhere in particular in that room, it's at his door. And his position for me now is just completely untenable.
I think you guys
cannot survive it, surely.
It can. Insert Mick McCarthy meme. I think you guys have both covered quite nicely in those answers these couple of comments that Joe had started for us. What are we doing outsourcing? If we're trying to be a small, well-run business, is outsourcing data and recruitment so highly a sensible idea? And when will serious questions be asked of the board? This is an interesting one. By the way, fellas, we've blown past our 8 p.m. deadline, but I'm quite happy to keep on with this for a little bit longer as we wait for the sign-in. If you're keen, if you want to get off, you've got other things to do, then feel free to call it a night.
I'll assume I have other hobbies than this, Ben, honestly.
So Rich saying here, do you think it's going to be some sort of apocalyptic budget statement to explain this mess, or will it just be the usual nonsense about sustainability? As Graham has said, I think the question here is not about, where we don't have the budget, it's how the budget's been used. I think that's, people are getting a little bit, I've questioned why we couldn't have had a bigger, because we could have had up to 12 million and the budget's 8 and 9. And my question is, well, there's flex there for more. But I also think that the money we've had has been enough to at least put a competitive team together. And that's where the big question should be. We shouldn't be getting away from that. I love that we went out and spent 1.2 million on Talai. And he does look like a decent player. But I would have also liked to have seen us spend that money in more intelligent places, or bring in free agents like Devante Cole. I've been saying, Adam will know this in the free chat. I've been saying it for absolutely stonking at this level. sort of player you need in League One. And I've said it on this podcast many times. I think at this league, there can be much of a muchness, and strikers make the difference. He could have got him for free. You'd have had to throw him a few $100,000 to, a signing bonus, and his agent would have wanted a whack. But in terms of, what we're talking about for what you could get, there's deals like that. And I think that what's been the business that's been done is apocalyptically bad. And it's not necessarily on the players who've come in. They've probably come in and been told they're going to get, additions to back them up and help them. I can't imagine that a lot of them came in thinking that, they'd want to be the starting players, obviously, but they thought they were going to get support cast around them who would be better than I think that they've got. I don't think Caleb Watts would have been mouthing off on social media to Exeter fans and Exeter Club, all of that needle he was pushing out, if he thought there was any chance at all that he was going to end up below them in the table, because that would just be the most stupid thing. He came in thinking we're going to be a team that's got clout, and that just hasn't materialised. I think he would, as an example, would be a player who's disappointed to see where the recruitment's gone. Someone asking, has anyone got Chris Errington's notifications on so we know when business is concluded? I don't know if anybody. I'm too old to be across 3 devices at once, so I can't tell you if we've got any news on this. This rumored incoming. Anything else here? Here's one for you, Graham. Does Graham know who has set the strategy for this window? Is it the consultants? Was it sort of like the board as a collective? Obviously, we know you have tentacles in many pies. Maybe more privy to some of this than others, but even if it's just your best guess as an experienced head, what do you think where this has come from?
The budget is set by the board. Yes, Simon is the non-executive chairman, so the board make the decision. And if it's Simon have the casting vote. Yes, Simon would, but as a non-executive chairman, it's a board decision. And I think Andrew Parkinson would have been the man most likely to be setting the budget, how much, and the strategy, and someone alluded to this, was to invest in potential, the resale.
Yeah.
And we started off doing that. Most of our early acquisitions were very much in that vein and were commended at the time. Then we had this 5-week gap. And now, this is the bit I can understand. We used to be a club that was admired, that Premiership clubs, even Championship clubs, would be willing to lend us players they thought we could develop. We've had nobody. Not one. There was rumours of Dane Scarlett.
Yeah.
So what's happened? We've got nobody of that calibre. There must be a reason. If any of those loan managers watching how we've played in the last few weeks would go, don't think that would be a good move for you, mate. You don't want your loan players going into a struggling team, so obviously struggling. So the strategy to buy development players, I get, but we've overemphasised on that, and we haven't bought or signed tried and trusted League One calibre, no more than that, players to stabilise. My view is, I always saw this as a stabilisation season to build for a promotion assault the second year, because of the turnover of players. It's almost, and the turnover of staff. Don't forget internal staff.
Yeah,
it would have been a real challenge to say, just because we got a top 6 budget, that automatically puts us knocking on the door of the playoffs. No, it doesn't. You've got to perform to get there, and we're miles off it. I can't understand it. How it's a disaggregation. We had this one Argyle philosophy where the board, the fans, the team were as one, and that's dissipated before our very eyes, and will unravel even more if we lose against Stockport, because then we got Luton, God help us, and then you're looking at one win in 8 or 9 games.
Yeah,
then that's looking serious. That's a recovery job of some magnitude. So, so I mean, one thing I will say about the accounts, I think the accounts might surprise a few people, because I lay money on, I think we've made a profit this year, according to the accounts.
You say that, but Simon said, didn't he, that we had to, because we weren't making player sales, that profits we thought we were going to do, the first tranche of wages had to go against.
Yeah, well, that comes into this year's accounts. So it's 30th.
Oh, I see. You mean from? I'm sorry.
From 30th of June. So as of the 30th of June, I wouldn't be surprised if we were in a declared profitable position.
Yeah.
Now this year is different, and I think that's going to be. I say we're a sustainable League One club. We are, as long as we maintain all the income, the gate receipts, and so on. But if that starts to slip away, and there were signs of hospitality not selling out at the last game, then you start that. It's a double whammy then. So I think the fans forum might surprise a few people, but that's gone. I'm more concerned about now, and I am concerned.
Yeah, no, it was me having a brain fart because you said this year, but of course the finances are for last year. You were talking about this year, which will be considered. It's my fault. I was not with it. Last point, maybe then, because we don't want to drag this too long. If the announcement isn't incoming, Adam, there's been a lot of friction among the fan base. I was in the Devonport seeing fists being thrown, or at least chest being shoved, etc. Not so long ago.
I thought we weren't going to spread our kerfuffle amongst our viewers. So,
I would never mess with you, Adam.
Come out now, God.
I wouldn't have the stones to mess with you, Adam. There's a lot of division, and I think there's a lot of, I want to say dissent. That's not the right word. There's a lot of disagreement between what it means to support the club and even supporting the board. I think Simon Hallett's been probably the best chairman we've ever had by some distance. Certainly the best chairman we've ever had. And it's okay to sort of criticise appointments, etc., and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. The same way I've said, I hope Tom cleverly adapts his style because it doesn't suit our players. Isn't me calling for him to be sacked or saying that he's under sort of inordinate pressure. It's just a case of, he's a young coach learning his trade, and this is an example of where a young coach learns to adapt and sort of tests himself against the hardships or the obstacles that he's facing. There's calls for the owners to leave. He wants to leave. That's a daft thing to be calling for. He's looking for the right investor. He can't just disappear and sell the club. And I think that those calls are very, if not premature, they're futile, because there's no point. He wants to sell to someone who can take the club forward. I don't think there's any point fans calling for Hallett out. But there were lots of where's the money gone, and the one that I thought wasn't very kind, but I think now I'm after a couple more losses was "You're nothing special, we lose every week," which is always gallows humor and good fun, but not good for the confidence of the players who are struggling. However, I'd kind of have to excuse that one a little bit if it gets an outing on Saturday, because here's my thing: I think most of the fans would have accepted that this is as a rebuild, and even accepted bad recruitment this window if that's what they've been sold. So the question I'm coming around to in a long way, Adam, is how do the club, because we've had enough statements, the last one was even just made things worse, to be quite frank. How do we as a fan base, independent of the club, who like to sort of give us this one Argyle, let's all be sort of, communist China, you shouldn't be nasty to the staff, etc. That's my opinion. That's not but I kind of feel it's a little bit patronizing. How do we sort of come together as a fan base and accept that we may have different opinions on how good the window's been, how good the board have done things of late? How can we reconcile our discontent and our disagreements between our evaluation and still be productive and not be toxic, not be at each other's throats in the stand, not be disagreeing so strongly that people are leaving social media, Besotti, Twitter, whatever, at such a rate because they just can't handle the strength of feeling. Now, obviously, we can't erase strength of feeling, but is there any way that we can, this being a public, there's nearly 5,000 people here, is there something we can do that we can be grown up about it, have our own opinions, and somehow still support the team? How do we go about that, do you think?
I think, to be honest, 95% of us can do that very easily. I think a lot of the chants that happen with where's the money gone? You're nothing special. We lose every. It is just a case of gallows humor, and I think that all of that's reasonable. As I mentioned before, I didn't join in with the "Hal it out" chants merely because it's not going to do anything, and I don't necessarily agree that it's an immediate course of action that can possibly be taken, even though I think Simon Hallett himself is "Hal it out." So it's a fair question to ask. I think what we all do, I think, deep down understand, is that everybody who goes to football matches, makes these chants, has their opinions on social medias, will come in on this podcast and chat about it. We do all of this because we want what's best for Plymouth Argyle. Nothing else. We're not doing that. Nobody has come on here, and nobody should. As I say, 95% are absolutely fine with it. Nobody should be getting personal with it. We are saying this, and we're saying this isn't good enough because we want it to be good enough. We want Plymouth Argyle to be a club that we can all support, all be in harmony, and succeed together. And we just have different opinions as to what that entails. I think, to be honest, with this transfer window, you won't see many differing opinions because nobody thinks it's been good. But if I go back, there's one moment I particularly remember from last season, which was just after we'd lost away to Oxford. It turned out to be Wayne Rooney's last game, but he wasn't sacked right away. And I remember speaking after that, and there were people thinking, do you know, I really hope we lose to Bristol City on New Year's Day because this would push him closer to the door. And it wasn't because they want Plymouth Argyle to fail. It wasn't because they actively want to see us lose. It's because they thought if we lose that one and it ends up getting Wayne Rooney sacked, that could be best for Plymouth Argyle. That's why we're saying what we are. That's why we're doing what we do. And I think we all generally, to be honest, recognise that, okay, frustrations will boil over. Okay, it'll get a bit toxic at times. But we all have the best intentions of this club at heart. We're football supporters. We want our club to do well. And we want to find the best way of doing that. And if that's putting pressure on the board without getting personal, then maybe that pressure needs to be exerted. It's tough to find a concentrated effort. And I don't think there's a single answer to the question of what should we do, what can we do to make things better. Because, of course, you know, we will turn up and we will support the team while the match is going on. The one example I've used in the past and will use again is Ian Foster's final game against Bristol City. Terrible performance, lost the game. Foster should have got a fortnight before that. But for the 90 minutes of that game, the supporters were right behind the team, trying to get us to the level we need to. I don't think, really, there can be any questions of the support here. We've sold out Luton away, which, given our away record and our away form, isn't something this club, in the way that's being run, particularly deserves right now. But we've done it. We have people on the season ticket waiting list still. Somehow, we've sold out season tickets and we've got more there. Has the club's performance been worthy of selling out season tickets for record prices? No. But we've done that as supporters. We want what's best for this football club. We want to get behind this football club. And you know what? We do get behind this football club. I think it's time for something to go the other way. In some cases, in some situations, when, for example, Joe Edwards trying to G up the fans in a relegation fight, I can get behind that, absolutely. When I see players trying to G up the fans when we're 2-0 down and we've just won a corner away at Cardiff or whatever it is, I think, come on, lads. Something's got to go the other way here. We've got to get something that we can get behind and does excite us. That's what's going to get everybody on the same page and on the same side. And right now, it is toxic. It is not nice being an Argyle supporter. And I know it's something that's been said, and Joe mentioned it earlier, and I'll repeat it. I don't think any of us enjoy coming on and talking about what's gone wrong. If we were overrunning by 20 minutes as we have done, and we were all here talking about the great signings we've made and the exciting season we've got going forward, I'd be having a wonderful time. The reality is we're not there. And I'd love us to get there. And every single passing blow that we get makes me worry that we're not going to, and we can't turn this around. And ultimately, what do we do as fans? We carry on doing what we're doing. We carry on getting in the giving our support to the players and giving our support to the team when these matches are going on. We carry on calling out the board where it's necessary, and I think it has become very necessary over the last couple of years. But what really needs to happen is actions. I completely agree with what you say, Ben, that statements are completely unhelpful at this point, to be honest. The one we've just had go by, as Graham was mentioning, with the what I think was a lack of proofreading on what they did with Falston Park. It raised more questions than answers. We don't need that. We need actions. Now, unfortunately, the time we had to take serious action has just passed. But there's still free agents available. I think we need to dip into that market. We need to go into January and we need to see some business happen there. I wish it had happened in the last 3 months. I wish they gave us something to get behind. They just haven't, and it's a really sad time. And I just hope we can turn it around. But is that for a lack of support? Absolutely not. The fans have been behind the team all the way, almost to a fault, with the amount of money we're spending now. It's time to see results in the other direction.
That was a very impressive speech, Adam, and I'd like to just mic drop it there and say and close it. But I'll give Graham just one chance to add any final thoughts, maybe on the window as a whole, maybe on the season looking forward, whatever it is you want to.
No, I think
that was it.
September the 1st, I talked on Pasotti about a watershed. We are at that watershed. We've played our hand in the transfer window, and it seems we played it poorly. So now it's up to Tom Cleverley and the players on the pitch to turn our fortunes around. It's nothing that the board, Andrew Parkinson, Simon Hallett can do now. It's the players and the team management. And if we can get a Blackpool type performance on Saturday, where even just score first. Yeah. Score first, the crowd's lifted. And once the crowd's lifted, we're an unstoppable force. When the crowd are behind the team, that's almost worth an extra goal. And we've only had one opportunity this season in all our games to celebrate that position. And that's what we need to do. And I'm fearful that if the players don't improve and we don't get the results, the Foster situation that slowly burned will manifest itself again if we're not careful. This is the first period of true adversity that Simon and Andrew have faced, I think, since in the last 5 years. So what they say in the fans forum, they've got to use that fans forum separate from just going through the club accounts to reinvigorate the fan base and re-earn their trust and respect, because I think some of that has gone for the first time. But only the players on the pitch and the team management can change it until January.
Yep. I'm a little bit worried, as someone has said it. I literally had the comment up and put it away. Is anybody else worried that this deal has fallen through? But I'm afraid we're going to call it a day there. Adam, did you have any after that Churchillian effort? Have you got any closing comments before I bid everyone adieu? I haven't got my own Joe Bell-esque sort of closing comments, so it'll be down to you to see us out.
God, I'll do what I can. I mean, on the Dale point, just very quickly, we haven't had confirmation yet. We also haven't had the tweet we seem to get every single window from Chris Arrington when we know that time's up and we know that there will be no more deals. We haven't had that yet either. So I'm still fairly confident that one's going to go through. Is that where my confidence around Plymouth Argyle ends at this moment? Yes. But hey, hopefully we'll see an upturn soon. And if we've not got hope, what have we got?
Yep, we will sadly likely still be here. I will be. I got a season ticket, so it would be silly, churlish not to still be here. But we will still be here, come rain, come shine, come defeats and fights in the stand, whatever it is. Let's hope that this ragtag that's been put together starts to gel, that we can find a formation that suits as many of them as possible, that Tom Cleverley can get past the disappointments that I'm sure he's had to face over the previous weeks of target after target not being available after being told that they were. There's a lot of people who we are blaming, and rightfully so, I think, to everyone at the club. I think in the leadership teams bears some responsibility for whether that's, Cleverly to expectation management, some of the things he said, whether that's who's been recruited, etc., that have blame. But I'd like to think they're all also hurting as well. They're professionals. They're in the public eye. They have their own reputations to consider, and hopefully that's directed in a productive, successful way, that's a driving force behind. Let's not be in this situation after the January window. Let's do everything we can until that point to make the most out of what we've got. So we will live in hope, perhaps, rather than expectation. But thanks so much to nearly 5,000 of you who joined us over the last 2.5 hours. Hopefully the catharsis was good for you too. Hopefully we shared some of your feelings and helped you to cope. We'll all go away now privately to cry ourselves through the last knockings.
I'm going tomorrow then, so I'm looking forward to
some
goals in the Virtue Trophy.
I'm taking my lad, but I had to take some in the hospital over the weekend, so it's whether we get there or not. But yeah, I'm also likely to be there. So yeah, those of us with strange tendencies will be there. We always are, and as Adam rightly said, that's one of the very strengths of this club is its fan base. So keep on keeping on, guys. There'll always be another season, even if this one ends as bad as we fear it might. There's always another chance round the corner. Thanks for joining us. Hope it was helpful to get you through. Hopefully, we'll hear once we're gone. We'll hear some positive news of someone else coming in, and then let's crack on. Heads down from the staff and the players, hopefully, and let's do all we can to support them when they deserve it, when it's appropriate. Do our best to help them with the work they'll undoubtedly be putting in. Right, cheers, guys.
Yeah, good night.
Yeah, go on.